Kid, awesome to have you on the Will Cain Show.
Thank you, Will. Love your show.
A little bit of a cigar first thing in the morning. We were just talking about nicotine's the hardest habit to quit.
100%. But it's the most enjoyable.
I'd be pretending if I hadn't started my day with a little bit of coffee and nicotine.
I started with a lot of coffee and nicotine. About 4 a.m. getting after it.
You just said this to me. You said, I haven't done this in a long time, all this media and these interviews on the day of a show. You're playing tonight, and I was thinking about that. This is a long day for you. You remind me in that way, and I'm not giving you this like gratuitous compliment of the president. You said it last night on Jesse Waters.
We have a lot
you don't
in common.
need a lot of sleep?
No, and I did this kind of sleep study a few years ago at Cleveland Clinic, and the result was basically there's like 2% of people who sleep 4 or 5 hours a night and are just fine. Because, it concerns me with like heart disease and things like that, stuff that runs in my family. And I've really been on this health kick the last 3 years. Still have my fun, but, I balance it out. And, it's, man, I feel great.
Is it always
the
been
same
that
thing
way?
with him? Like, I'll talk to him at 2 a.m. and then, sometimes after I have a few beers, I'm like, hey, what's up? And then he'll call me at 6, like 5 a.m. Like, how do you like it? I'm like, I'm up. I'm ready to go.
What percentage of the time when you dial his number does he pick up?
50%.
No matter the hour?
No. I know the best hours to get him at, which is really early. And then, kind of dinner time, late weekends when he's golfing or something. I try not to bother him too much unless I have something really pointy, like my ticketing thing I'm trying to get done or whatever. But I don't wear him out. So when I call him, it's just fun calls. Like, I'm his buddy. Like, I'm not one of these people like, hey, so-and-so wants you to, which I feel like I work for the government. Every day it's somebody sending me something. Can you give me a pardon? Can this happened to me? Can you tell the president? I'm like, no, I'm his buddy. Like, I'm trying to get my ticketing thing done. And I've been by his side since day one, so I'm not putting anybody's agenda above mine. So if you're listening, just know that up front.
Has it always been that way, the 4 to 5 hours of sleep night? Have you been built that way since you were in the 20s?
No. I was a little wilder in my youth. Now that I've been this health kick, it's like the healthier I get, the less I sleep, almost. That's been the pattern. But I didn't see a day till 10 o'clock for years. But I was also in sixth gear. I can't. I'm at this point in life. I'm trying to find third gear. I'm either off or six. Whether it's working, playing, partying, anything. And I'm trying to make life sustainable. Being in a rock and roll. And I think third gear is where it has to end up at some point.
Why did that happen? Was there something that happened in your life? Why'd you decide to get healthy? I don't think he or you will mind me saying that I know you and Pete used to work out together a little bit. And I saw you a year or two ago. I know you love pickleball. What kicked off the health kick?
And it was just time. It was just time to, replace the bad habits with good ones. And, it was too being friends with Dana White and that whole scene, having people to see the changes in them. It's like, you're unstoppable, untouchable through probably your 30s, when you're rocking and rolling every night and you get pizza, drink beer, and hang out and do it again. And your 40s, you don't even realize it's creeping up on you. And you're like, oh man, I got a beer gut going. Especially when you're seeing yourself on TV and in pictures, you got.
Vanity's a great check.
Yes, very good
It's a great
check.
Health check.
So then when I, got close to 50, I'm like, all right, it's time. It's time. And I, if you just, AI or Google, like the average age of a pop rock star,
Yeah.
I think it's 47.
Really?
So I'm winning. I'm winning right now.
You said that you and the president have a lot in common.
Mm-hmm.
We just mentioned the sleep. What else do you have in common?
Work ethic, our love for America, love for family and friends, loyalty, fun. That dude is the funniest guy, I've ever met. People are like, what's he like to golf like? I'm like, greatest golf partner ever. Just out there, you're so relaxed, feeling fun, even enamored with the presidency. That takes a little time, kind of. But I tell my friends when they come to have breakfast with us or something, I'm like, in a minute and a half, you'll feel like this is one of our old buddies we're just hanging out talking with. And I know all the presidents, and I've been, blessed enough to be around them and spend time. They're all very charismatic. You have to be at that level, but he's on another level, man. He's just so down to earth, so cool. Unpretentious. I'm out there golfing in a wife beater because I wanted to get some sun. He's like, whatever you want. Like my dad, first time we golfed, he's like, don't smoke and drink beer around the president. I'm like the third hole, I'm like, mind if I have a cigar with friends? He's like, no, do whatever you want. And I'm like, he's like, you want a Hershey's bar? You want a Fanta? And I'm like, do you mind if I get a beer? He's like, No, drink your beer. I'm like, yes.
It is wild. I've had that personal experience as well. I don't know him as well as you, but it's hard to explain to people whose only impression of the president is the caricature they get through 90% of your media channels.
Yeah, the media paints this picture. I mean, I've been saying it, the mainstream media is like public enemy #1 at this point. You know, no matter what you think about them, I mean, there's just sometimes facts. You know, some of the good things that are, you can't argue against them, that are just good for this country, no matter what your politics are. And they won't even, anything that puts them in a positive light, they will not even give a nod to it. And it's just disgusting.
What did you think of the 86-47 thing going around yesterday, including the former FBI director, James Comey?
My first thing was like, oh, he must drunk tweet too. You know, he'll send out some drunk tweets. I'm like, but I'm in a rock band. You know what I mean? Like,
Not the former FBI director.
The FBI director knows what 86 somebody means. Clearly. You know, I mean, clearly knows what that means. And that's effed up that, you know, this guy's had 2 assassination attempts. You know, President Trump had, you got the former head of the FBI saying 80, you know, alluding to 86-47. Like, what the hell's the matter with people?
How do you explain it?
I would, you know, TDS at the highest levels. I mean, I used to laugh about TDS. I thought that was a funny thing, Trump derangement syndrome. Like, ha, that's a good one. And over the last few years, I'm like, this is real. This is real. Like, this is literally, I'm like, you know, I love how he's slashing these pharmaceutical prices and stuff. And I've said, you know, hopefully one of these companies, Pfizer, can come up with a cure for TDS, because there's half this nation that's infected.
You said most people, when they meet him within a minute and a half, they see the charm, they see the personality, they see the real man.
The realness.
Yeah.
The realness.
Authenticity.
You can't fake real.
So did the over-under hit for you when you took Bill Maher to the White House?
Over. I mean, it was, me and Dana just sat back and enjoyed the show. We had a front row seat to what potentially could have been the biggest poop show on earth. And
you can,
I mean, the
you
president,
can talk like you want to talk.
Okay.
This is the Will Cain Show.
the biggest show on earth. We had a front row seat, and you know, it was just so, it was, you know, the president, first off, was not too happy with me about lining this up. He agreed to it. He kind of forgot that he agreed to it. And he called me a few times with concerns. And then I talked to Bill, and I was like, look, Bill's, you know, he's not, I was worried too. Like, is Hollywood going to try to use this to get thrown out of the White House and get ratings up? And Bill goes, Bob, I'm not going to go in there and sabotage something that could potentially bring this country closer together. I'm like, Mr. President, he gets it. He's not going to agree with the politics. Just know that going in, of course. He's not going to put on a MAGA hat and, you know, dance around for a picture with us. Like, but then we're in the Oval Office. This was funny. I think it's okay to share this. I don't like to speak out of school, and it's not appropriate, but they're like, pull Bob up a chair. Supposedly he goes, what the hell are we doing tonight? And I'm like, what do you mean? He goes, you know, dinner's going to be fine. He's going to throw us under the bus. You don't need this. I don't need this. He goes, you know, I just found out about this from Melania. And I'm like, sir, I know you have a lot on your plate, and I get it. I was like, number one, 2 questions. Number one, do you think that I would line up a dinner with one of your harshest critics without getting your approval? And number 2, do I have the power to do that? Can I just line up these dinners and you show up at the White House?
Without your approval or your notice ahead of time?
That's kind of funny.
You mentioned a minute ago that you have a lot in common, and one of them is, the first thing you said is love for America.
Yeah.
So when did that, has that always been a part of your life? I met your brother.
Mm-hmm.
Is that how you guys grew up? Or is this something that developed in your life over time?
No, that's how we grew up. My dad and mom instilled in us just, you know, good values, being patriots. You know, we attended church, you know, played baseball and sports, and we did hard work on the weekends around our beautiful compound that my father built with his bare hands, you know, with a great car dealership. And yeah, we always had an American flag hanging, picture George Washington, Abe Lincoln. And I think, and you know, then when I started, you know, have some notoriety and make some money, as we call it, you know, my mom was the one that really pushed me into philanthropy and helping other people out. And when it came up, the USS Cole was bombed. She was the one that said, you ought to do something nice for them, you know, and we did a show and gave the money to those sailors' families that died. And that really kicked off things that, you know, led to so many USO tours and playing around the world for our troops, you know, especially during those god-awful wars. And so, yeah, that was 100% instilled to me by my family. My grandfather served in World War II and my uncle in Vietnam. And
and you've leaned all the way in, unapologetically. I know the answer you're going to give me is I never gave a shit, Will. But when you did lean in, you have a lot of relationships. Bill Maher is one of them. And by the way, I pride myself on this, Bob. I have friends that don't agree with me. It doesn't preclude us from being friends. But in your business, it does for them often. Did a lot of people say, no more friendship with Kid Rock?
Well, number one, I don't give a f.
I knew you were going to say that.
But number two, it's like, when you find yourself in hard times, difficult times, you find out who your friends are. Yeah. It just weeds out the bad hombres, so to speak. It's like when you go to Kid Rock's honky tonk, you kind of know the clientele is going to be there. When you go to my new restaurant in Nashville, you kind of know the starting point. I kind of look at it as like it's a great singles hookup spot. You know what I mean? Because you're kind of going into it halfway, knowing a little bit more what somebody's kind of values are and where their mindset is about things. And there's a good chance that people are going to be patriots, love their country and hardworking folks. And so I actually look at it as a blessing. There's so many artists who are so scared. They tap dance around these issues. They're scared to say how they feel. I mean, I've said it before, and I'll say it again. I'll give Taylor Swift credit for at least standing up for what she believes in. I think it's garbage. I don't believe in any of it. I think she's ill-informed. She probably ought to listen to her dad a little bit more. But, at the same time, she's got the balls to stand up for what she believes in, and I don't hate her for that. I don't agree with her wanting to be, I think a lot of her politics lie on wanting to be Hollywood's darling. I think that's a lot of celebrities.
And I think for me, I don't know if, I hear you saying this, I think, to some extent as well. If you're doing it because you think it's the popular path or the easy road to go down or the easiest way to sell tickets, I can't respect that. But if you truly believe, perhaps like Bill Maher does, these things, you can be wrong, but I can respect that you got to your incorrectness authentically.
Absolutely. Real is real.
Absolutely. You said last night on Jesse Waters when we were talking about some of these stars.
Cue the coffee.
It's okay. We roll through it. We're talking about Bruce Springsteen. You were talking about Bruce Springsteen with Jesse. And you said something like, well, Bruce has got a few good songs, but for my money, pound for pound, it's Bob Seger.
Yeah, so, there's no heartland rock and roll. And I love a lot of Bruce Springsteen songs. Tom Petty, John Mellencamp. But for me, Bob Seger, not even just my friendship with him or being from Detroit. I just look at it pound for pound, note for note, songwriting for songwriting, singing, everything. There's great records, Bob did at Muscle Shoals and all over. Like, there's just nobody touches him in that space. I mean, not only am I his biggest fan, but I'm jealous every day that I'll never be that good.
Well, when I heard you say that, it made me wonder. So you start out, and it's largely rap, hip hop where you start, then comes the rock and roll. Over time, it's also brought in country. So I'm just curious, besides Bob Seger, either as a kid or now, who you look to and go, that's my inspiration?
Oh man, it's everything from Run DMC and a very early old school hip hop in the 80s. I could name hip hop artists for day in that space, but I'll just put Run DMC at the pinnacle. And then, my parents had such a great record collection of Bob Seger and the Eagles. And everything from Elton John and Johnny Cash to Waylon Jennings. And it's so much different music. And then my sister and brother were into different stuff. And, hip hop is what grabbed me first. Probably, it was just something that hit me musically that I loved, but it was also the rebellious of it.
Yeah.
It was lined up parallel with rock and roll. And as I got older, I really thought about it. I was like, in our lifetimes, and pretty much since the existence of music, if you don't go back to like Celtic music, in Europe and things like this, but American music, like, everything was birthed by jazz music and the blues. And everything was a form of that, from rock and roll to soul music, R&B, country, everything. We didn't see anything else. I got to witness the birth of hip hop, which now has its fingerprints, like the blues and jazz, on every form of music that comes out, sometimes for the better, sometimes for the worse. But, so yeah, I've just always gone with my heart, and somehow was blessed to just, be a truth teller. And I learned that at a young age, and that's reflected in my music and my life.
Don't you think it's interesting you said that you were drawn to hip hop in part because of its rebelliousness? I was too. I listened to rap. I listened to Run DMC. I listened to you. And rebelliousness is an appeal. It's what attracts kids to music. Don't you think it's fascinating that over time, our point of view, one that you and I share, came to be the rebelliousness for kids today? And it's wild because
being a conservative became like
but it's wild because you're actually in the majority and yet you're also rebellious.
Yeah. I mean, I mean, once again, MAGA has just changed the Republican Party for the better. You know, in my opinion, it's just completely changed it for the better, in my opinion. You know, it was so kind of, you know, there was no room for me in there as Kid Rock, you know, for a lot of years. I was, but there wasn't any room for me to be what I am now in the party, you know, with President Trump.
You weren't walking out at a UFC event with your song playing in front of George W. Bush.
Yeah, I wasn't golfing with the president while he's playing the unedited version of American Badass with some pretty hard language in it.
All right. Finally, I want to talk about this. Kid Rock, Rock and Rodeo. Okay. This is fascinating. And you've described it as P.T. Barnum meets the rodeo. And I love that on multiple levels that I want to explain to you, but I want you to explain to me what you mean when you say you're bringing P.T. Barnum to the rodeo.
Well, first of all, you know, it was a thing, you know, that I did deal with the PBR to start a league. We're both owners of that. And they have a team's bull riding format that they started. And I was talking about I wanted to take rodeo to places that, like, I didn't have it in Detroit growing up. You know what I mean? To different places like that. Of course, we're starting it in Texas, which they're very spoiled in the world of rodeo and all things cowboy. And so we figured out, let's take the teams competition, try to franchise and sell those teams eventually and create something totally different, more drama, which cowboys and cowgirls don't like their rodeo being messed with too much. But after we did our first event last year, every one of these world-class, you know, cowboys and cowgirls, world champions came up to me and were like, that was incredible. We love it. I got their co-signature on that, which meant a lot. And enter me, you know, my thing isn't putting the rodeo together. You know, I play a cowboy in a song. That's about it. I got some horses and some longhorn steers and some chickens. That's about it. I don't pretend to be a world-class cowboy and no level. But I said, I want to, you know, P.T. Barnum this up. I want there to be shenanigans and entertainment at the highest levels. Like, the format has always been, if there's a music component, it's the rodeo and then a concert. I go, I want to kick this off with a huge grand entrance, and I want our thing to be a special surprise guest with just a big, you know, 10-minute opening number to set the tone for the night. And then in between the disciplines as they're going on. You know, the first thing I said, and they thought I was joking, I was like, we got to get midget matadors and like midgets riding mini bulls and just like shenanigans at the highest level.
And
just entertainment.
was that sold?
They were kind of laughing. I'm like, no, I'm serious. I'm like, we need shenanigans at the highest level. Entertainment that's just fun for the entire family. Yeah, it's edgy and it's pushing the boundaries, but it's just fun. Like, somehow sports has gotten so serious. And I mean, you look at what the Savannah Bananas are doing and baseball. And I was like, and I actually just had this meeting. I go, this is what I'm screaming about for 2 years. You know, I've been following the Savannah Bananas too. And, you know, they just sold out Nissan Stadium in Nashville. I go, boom, there it is. I love baseball. I love all sports, but I'm like, this elevates and it's something else. This is entertainment, you know, mixed with sports. And that's what I want to do with the rodeo.
It's like you're stealing my questions or we're on the same wavelength. And I've only ever been on that same wavelength with one other person, and he's now the Secretary of Defense. But I saw the Savannah Bananas 3 weeks ago. I didn't know anything about them. And I said, what am I going to see? And somebody said, it's like the Harlem Globetrotters meets baseball, but on steroids. I went at Clemson. They sold out Death Valley, 80,000 people. Dabo Swinney runs out of the tunnel. And you get out there, and it's exactly what you said. Yeah, it's baseball, but it's the circus.
Yeah.
It's entertainment. It's the Harlem Globetrotters. And when I was reading and thinking about what you're doing here, I immediately thought of the Savannah Bananas.
Absolutely. 1,000%. That was the best way I could convey that to the PBR, who've been great partners, and the top dogs at TKO. Now that I put it in those terms, and it's funny, it relates, switching gears to like this ticketing thing I'm doing. Like, I'm trying to, you know, get a 10% cap on the resale of tickets, get tickets at fair prices in the hands of the fans. And it's been a little tough to, you know, even though the president's moved the ball farther down the field than anybody with his executive order and brought this issue to the forefront and directed the FTC and DOJ to look into this, it's hard, you know, selling them on something that's a little bit anti-capitalistic, you know, because we're both capitalists to the bones. But when the people are getting screwed, I go, this lines up with what you're doing with pharmaceuticals. Exactly the same thing. You know what I mean? Like, why can't somebody sell a pharmaceutical for whatever money they can get in America? That's capitalism. Well, when it goes too far and people hide under the guise of capitalism, somebody needs to step in. This is where regulations actually make sense, not crippling small business, protecting the American worker, the American consumer. So, you know, it related very easily to them like that. I think we got a good shot of getting it.
Tell me more about how that's going, in that I covered it this week. on my show the potential of capping prices of pharmaceuticals. And it is a tension. It is a struggle because you say we are a free market and you and I, we believe in capitalism. If the price of something is the price of something, that's what the market bears. But something happens in a few markets where it gets warped and it doesn't reflect a true market. Maybe it's instead of capitalism, it's corporatism. But how do you reconcile that and explain and get it where you want when it comes to tickets and a reasonable price for the fans?
Exactly what I said. I mean, I don't claim to be the smartest guy in the room in the issue on this. I have the loudest voice, and I've been, working on this and studying it for probably 20 years, along with some other artists we really want to get the ticket prices into the hands of the fans at the prices we set. I mean, what other business doesn't control their inventory? And Ticketmaster, I've been in business with them in Live Nation for years, and Live Nation's been great in a lot of ways, but I'll say it again, like, if they lose their company, get broke up, I'm not going to shed a tear at all. They've been very bad actors in that space. And they'll blame it on competition, this, that, and the other, or its lack of competition, because it really is a monopoly. And I know the DOJ is looking into that. I've spoke to them about it. I could end up testifying. I don't know where this thing goes, but, I'm also at the point where it's like, okay, if you kill Ticketmaster, like I said, I'm not going to shed a tear, but it doesn't solve the problem. I want to solve the problem. And the best thing it's like an airline ticket. If you buy an airline ticket, you can't resell your airline ticket.
Right.
So can we do tickets like that? I mean, I couldn't go to Ticketmaster anytime during my career and say, okay, what's the deal with the building, this, that, and the other? What do you guys got your ticket prices and fees at? Okay, it's 10,000 seat building. I want to give you that money and buy those 10,000 tickets.
Right.
Then I own my inventory and I'll resell them. No, we control that. It's so much conundrum. And this isn't just in ticketing. It's the whole music business. It is it is the most evil business on earth. And if I can get this ticketing thing done, I'm like, I might put the record companies in my sights next because they've been terrible actors too. What business do you know that it basically gives you a loan? You go and get a record deal for a loan. Yes, they do a lot of promotion, things like this. They charge it all back to you. So you repay that loan and then they take 80% of your profits. Who can survive on that business model? And I'm not saying there's not a ton of money in the business. For those that make it, there's oodles. But for the middle level, lower level artists who make a living doing this, it's just another scumbag system of people being greedy, and they need to be checked too.
But their value has also declined, right? In the past, the purpose of the record company was distribution and promotion, both of which you now control.
Well, I do, but people who still have record deals, like it was supposed to be the digital age, was supposed to usher in this new thing. We've heard about these black artists that just got screwed from the beginning of time. And most artists, and you're like, okay, this digital age is going to bring us to a 50-50 spot, at least. Nope. They just figured out how to put another page in the contract and screw you again.
All right, last thing. You're well beyond this now. We were just talking in terms that you are now an owner. You're an entertainer, but that's only a partial description. I mean, you're part of this whole thing. You've really crossed over. You're an entrepreneur.
That sounds funny. Entrepreneur, Kid Rock. That's going to be a tough sell.
I don't think so, man. I don't think so. It's part of what you've been from the beginning, a rebel and a visionary. Your music is unique, and now your business is unique.
Yeah, one of the best compliments I ever had was somebody said that I'm disobedient but decent. And I like that. And I've been very fortunate. My father was a very smart businessman. Although all the advice he'd given me through the years I went against and it worked out pretty well. But I still have some gene in me or something that, is giving me that ethic of hard work and trying to be intelligent about things I'm going to talk about or changes I'm going to make, like in ticketing or starting a business or being a partner in a business. So, I like to be on time. I think that's our biggest commodity. Start there. I'm a great guest. I take my plate to the sink and make my bed, so I get invited back. And when I'm a partner in a business or something, I work my ass off and give it 1,000%.
And you'll see it here at the Rock and Rodeo. Thank you, man, so much.
Thank you, Will. Love your show.
Thanks for so much time. Thank you, man.
Hey, it's Will Cain. Click here to subscribe to the Fox News channel on YouTube. It's the best way to get our latest interviews and highlights. And click to subscribe to the Will Cain podcast for full episodes right now.